I mean, I actually went to a talk on Friday, completely coincidentally, with a real TED Talk speaker, this guy, Cal Fussman. And he was awesome. But the topic that he was talking about was asking great questions. And I was sitting there thinking, yeah, okay, this is cool. I'm doing a talk. It won't be anything like this one, but there is a question in the topic of my talk. And he was going, ask great questions. And I was going, okay, is my question a great question? So, yeah, I actually want to introduce this topic with a bit of a story. And maybe that can help with the is it a good question story as well. And the story is a little nostalgic for me. It's about the starting of my business, Liquid CRM. And it goes back to 2004, so 12 years ago now, when I left my comfortable salaried position at Microsoft and bonded my house and started this business. So, yeah, I remember the very first day in my new office with my expensive new desk chair that I spent some of that money from my bond on, reading the CRM version 1 training manual, 1.2 to be exact, and learning everything about Microsoft CRM, learning how to demo its benefits, and then demoing it to anyone who would listen, you know, family, friends. And within the first couple of months, we'd landed our first client, which was Telumet. And I remember very distinctly my quote to them for our services was 140,000 Rand. So yeah, that was an amazing little project. It was quite a learning curve for me, as you can imagine. You know, we listened to the client's requirements. We configured Microsoft CRM to do what they needed to do. We trained the users. And then it came to the go-live day. And I remember it very clearly. I mean, you can imagine my excitement. You know, I've started a business. It's the first CRM project. Super excited. Arrived early in the morning. And like nothing happens, you know. I think we had a user, like a sales guy, capture a sales opportunity at about like, I don't know, 10 in the morning or something. And I think maybe we had another 1 or 2 later on that day. I think probably that whole week we had maybe 3 calls of like, oh, how do you do this again? And we're like, okay, so excited, you know. And yeah, unfortunately for that implementation, I don't think we ever really got many users off the ground. Welcome, hello. So, but we didn't have too much chance to actually worry too much about that because by then the next client was already lined up and we went straight into an implementation with KPMG. And at the time, that was the biggest Microsoft CRM deal for Microsoft in the Southern Hemisphere. It was a 3,000 user CRM rollout. And yeah, that was a baptism of fire, a hell of a learning curve. And again, by the time we went live about a year later, yeah, huge fanfare from KPMG. They threw everything at it from a change management point of view. I mean, we had posters on pillars and walls, big CRM words. You know, we had red balloons in the reception when we went live. And again, adoption was really nowhere. There was like little pockets, little business units that were enthusiastic, but it never really got traction. But again, we didn't have too much chance to worry about it. By then, we were employing people. I mean, our business ball was rolling. Demand for CRM implementations was pretty high. And I remember some of the new staff that we'd hired, and I mean, this has happened continuously. We'd train them up on all these things we've now learned in terms of implementing Microsoft CRM. They'd go out and do their first implementation, and they'd come to me afterwards. They'd go, Roger, you know, yeah, we've just put in all this effort. The clients paid us a whole lot of money, and like hardly anybody's using this system if we run the reports. You know, what's with that? I mean, don't these clients get like the return on investment, and don't they get the benefits? And I mean, surely if they did, this wouldn't happen, right? And I mean, yeah, it's gut-wrenchingly disappointing for us as a business that's based on this as a service, this whole CRM implementation thing. So, obviously we looked into it. We did some research. You don't have to Google too far to find that this is a widespread problem. It's not just us and our clients. This is a global thing with CRM, it would seem. I guess we dabbled in trying to find an answer, right? We partnered with companies that we kind of came along with along the way that had kind of a like-minded approach. We even employed people, such as Bronwyn, for example, that we met along the way in our clients who focused on this kind of stuff and user experience. But I say we dabbled because I guess we were busy doing CRM implementations. We really didn't have a lot of energy and time left to actually worry too much about this challenge. So much so that around the beginning of this year, middle of this year, I decided to finally pull the trigger on something that my business partner, Andre, he's based in Johannesburg, had been promoting for a long time, and that was an event for our customers. And we would do CRM-related talks at this event. And I put up my hand to do the first talk, and I said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my chop firmly on the block, and I'm going to do it about this subject matter. And of course, here we are today. So that's the real reason I'm kind of nervous to actually now show you what we've come up with. So, except I might not get to do that. There we go. We have been working, as I said, for the last probably 6 months or so to actively put together content for this talk. I guess it's the aggregate of everything I've learned about CRM in the last 12 years. But it's also the aggregate of everything at Liquid CRM that we've learned. We've had numerous workshops. We've really rallied around this opportunity to kind of put what I'm going to show you together. And I think I just wanted to also mention that we didn't want to kind of come here and having done a whole lot of research into what other people thought and regurgitate that to you. That's really not what we're wanting to do here. What we are wanting to do is share with you from our experience what we really think and what we've seen having done this. So we've come up with something which we call our holistic CRM framework. So I guess most people know that when implementing technology in business, it's not just about the technology, it's about people, process, and technology, right? It's almost a cliche. But we also think it's about strategy and starting with the right strategy before we get down into the detail. So let's start there. When we're talking customer relationship management, we've got to have a strategy. We think it should be a document. We think it should be committed to paper. In this document should be how we want to, in our organization, deal with customer relationships. How are we going to do this differently from our competitors who are also doing the same thing? It should probably go down into enough detail that it's also got something around what systems and tools, including our own CRM tool, are going to be required and how are they going to be used to meet this strategy, right? I'm not going to go through every bullet on here. And by the way, we're giving you a link to this Prezi so that you'll be able to get at this detail for yourself if you want to refer back to it. But just to talk about business cases, I've probably seen a lot of business cases just in our clients here today, but in our client base especially. And what I haven't seen a lot of is companies who then return back to that business case once a CRM implementation has been done and actually look at how it's gone against that business case and especially look at things like return on investment and actually calculate that return. And yet there are tools. So if you haven't seen Nucleus Research, go and have a look at that. This is an example of a tool that does help you do these kind of calculations and is pretty good. So moving over to technology a little bit now. I guess over our 12 years as Liquid CRM, this is probably where most of our effort has gone in the past, right? And I suppose as clients, we've seen you put most of your effort in this area too, right? What we wanted to do here is to address this question of what return on investment in CRM, right? We wanted to try and make that as practical and real for you as we can. So what we've done on the functional side is take the 3 modules of Microsoft CRM and any CRM system actually. I mean, obviously these are the touch points of customers with a business, right? And unpack for each one a list of things that we felt we've delivered. It's got a very financial services slant to it because I guess that's where most of our experience has been in that time. So we've put all the features, the things that we've delivered for clients in these different areas there. And then we've unpacked a list of business benefits that we've seen that are linked to these features, right? So for example, if you take pipeline management in sales, I mean, one of the business benefits, not the only one, would be, for example, improved forecasting accuracy. So what CRM ROI, do you think there would be business benefit to forecasting more accurately in your organization? Would there be a return on investment in the system that does that? Well, yeah, there would definitely be. I don't think you need to get too scientific about that, right? And then what we wanted to do was really make that real for clients. So how could we measure that? What would a dashboard look like that measured that aspect, right? So, for example, pipeline to target ratio would do that. We know how much is in our pipeline, we know what our target is, and we know what the ratio of the two together is. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but we will give you the link to do that. But we've got a list for service, as in the client service functionality in Dynamics CRM, and we've got a list for marketing. So I wanted to tell you another little story which really, to my mind, kind of gets the nitty-gritty of this whole issue of business benefit of CRM, right? So we were upgrading our Microsoft CRM to CRM Online for Liquid CRM, sort of the middle of this year, I guess. And for about a month, just over a month, I didn't have my Outlook client for Microsoft CRM. So those of you, I think most of you have been working with Microsoft CRM for a little while, so you know what the Outlook client for Microsoft CRM is, right? Welcome, come on in. And so it was uninstalled from my machine while we went through this upgrade process. So there was a couple of things that happened. I mean, obviously the first thing that happened was all of my 1,000+ business contacts that I have accumulated over 12 years doing CRM were uninstalled out of my Outlook contacts and off my phone as well, because I synchronized my Outlook with my phone, of course. But I was thinking, that's not a problem, right? Because I've got the CRM mobile client on my phone. If I need to know one of your numbers, look it up, click the link, give you a call. And later that day, I got a call from a client that I've been working with on a project quite a bit. And I can't see the number, obviously, on my phone. And I go, hello, Roger Strain. And the other person on the other end of the line goes, Roger, it's me, John. And I mean, normally I answer the phone, hi, John. And, you know, for him, the client experience is not kind of what he's used to here, right? The other thing that happens, and you must bear in mind now, I have been using a CRM system I worked out for this talk for 20 years. Okay, so this is kind of going back to Maximizer, for any of you that know that CRM system, into Siebel. I work for a couple of organizations that use Siebel, and obviously Microsoft CRM. And a habit that I've got into is if I get, and it's often an email, but if I get contacted by a new client or prospect, I will track that incoming email in my CRM system. And I will link it to the lead or sales opportunity in that system, right? And the reason I do that is because if I don't do that, I can't be sure that there is a lead and an opportunity in my CRM system for everything that I'm working on. And if I can't do that, I mean, at any one point in time, I've got 20, maybe more opportunities that I'm working on, usually with at least 3 or 4 people linked to them that I got to then keep in my head, right? So that's just not going to work. So I've got into the habit of this system. The problem was without that Outlook client, I couldn't track that email now. And I couldn't do what I normally do, which is right-click on the name of that person in that email, say add to Outlook, and hit the track in CRM button, and then there's person's details in my system. What I would have to do is go and open up my web browser or my mobile app and capture some stuff, and I just wasn't doing that extra step. I'm a busy guy, right? Okay. So that whole process started to break down, and I can't tell you the stress that I felt by within a couple of weeks of not having my system all organized. I wasn't really sure where things were. I honestly could really feel the tangible pain of that. The next thing that happened was we were putting the invites together for this event. So I sent out an email to my Liquid CRM team, and I said, guys, please, I've set up marketing lists in our Microsoft CRM. If you could maybe please just go and link, I've linked the contacts that I think should be there, but if you could take any clients that you have relationships with that you think should get an invitation, and please link them to the marketing list. So there were two things there. The one was that I needed to do that myself, and while I was doing that, I was going, but hang on, what about this person? And what about that person? And I realized in that month and a bit that I didn't have my Outlook client, those contacts hadn't got captured. The pain of now going through my notes and through my emails and finding these details and updating them in my CRM system and linking them to the relevant marketing list, that was painful. And the other thing that I'm almost too ashamed to even admit, but I'll put it out there, the other thing that happened was I get a couple of, more than one, reply email from my team going, sure, Roger, here you go. Cut and paste, name, email address, send to me in an email, presumably for me to go and capture in my CRM system and link to the marketing list. And I mean, these are CRM consultants, right? Yeah, terrible. So let's talk a little bit about the process side of things. In the people, process, and technology. A process that we went on an intervention with in October was a customer journey mapping exercise. And I think some of you have experienced this. We use Brand Lovers consultants to take us through this journey. Brand Lovers is going to be speaking next, so you'll get to hear about them. And what we did was we went and put ourselves in our client's shoes. We imagined what a client going through the journey of our Liquid CRM business would look like. So like a CRM implementation, for example. And we put down each stage in that journey. And in each of those stages, we tried to imagine what the client's expectations would be. Your expectations, right? We unpacked that to the point of, if we exceeded those expectations, what would it look like? If we failed those expectations, what could it look like? And quite a lot more detail than that as well. We got our whole team together and we did multiple sessions. Brand Love have got this very cool Lego-based serious play methodology. These are real Legos in these pictures here. And it was to try and get our team's creative juices going around imagining this client experience. And it worked like a bomb. It was fun too. But the most amazing thing about this exercise was it really highlighted to me and to us as a business the gaps in the things that we are doing to achieve the desired client experience, right? It was very obvious to us. And we had a couple of aha moments. One of them was one of our developers, CRM developers, one of our more technical guys, I won't mention his name, it was very quiet during this whole exercise, and at one point he turns around and he goes, oh, so you're telling me if I get a client specification document for some development that I've got to code against, and I'm reading that and I go, I can see there's gaps here. I don't think this is well thought through. Even though I'm a developer, I should actually raise my hand and maybe ask some leading questions, because ultimately the client experience is going to be better. I was just like, wow, that's cool. Okay, so that's customer journey mapping. Another company that we've partnered with, and I think some of you have met them, is Digiterra. And they've got an offering specifically called Echelon. And this is both a software tool and a methodology, which we spent a couple of days in a room with them, and we applied this to CRM. And what it allowed us to do was, for example, starting with strategy, the tool allowed us to capture, in this case, we took a simple thin slice through CRM, we focused on sales specifically, and we said, okay, if we've got a business strategy of increasing sales, we captured that into the system. We then created linkages through to the business processes that would be required in order to achieve those strategies, right? So, for example, we've got mature opportunities in there. And the linkage was the key thing that was captured into the system here. We linked that down to the organizational structure and units and roles and people that would be needed to achieve that business process based on that strategy. So in the case of our example, sales manager, sales people, and so on, right? And we went down to an application level. So here's Microsoft CRM, and we've got sales business processes, we've got the Outlook client, we've got the mobile client. We linked all the relevant pieces together in the tool. We went and actually, as far as a data level, so we linked it to domain entities like opportunities and leads and accounts and contacts. And we went down to infrastructure level. So we had their mobile devices, we had networks, the relevant network that would be required in order to achieve the user experience, right? And the outcome was something like this, and it was honestly so enlightening for me, having been involved in Microsoft CRM for all these years, to really finally see visually and I guess internalize the linkage back all the way up to that business strategy and how these features are rendered in terms of the strategic objectives of the business. Okay. Of course, a process as well that would be worth mentioning here would be something like our bread and butter of our business, I guess, which is the implementation methodology that one uses in implementing a CRM system. So obviously we've subscribed to the Microsoft best practice, which is SureStep here. And lately we've been innovating on that. Things like Kanban, for example, within the agile thinking is something that we've been increasingly putting into our mix. But to talk about the people side of things for a second, probably the biggest mistake we see nearly all of our clients making is an overemphasis when their CRM goals around what's in it for them and as an organization, at the detriment of what's in it for the end user. Okay. So we're focusing increasingly on this. I mentioned Bronwyn Hayden. For those of you who haven't met her, I think she's involved in a number of your organizations already. And this is her methodology that we've been working with her on, focused at making sure that the user is not forgotten, is actually put front and center. Okay. Client-centric culture is something I've put here. This is something we've actually done quite a bit of work on, actually the end of last year, coming into this year. We did a whole exercise around this using a coach. And although this is quite an internal document, I kind of just wanted to show you what we've done. Probably the biggest learning to me in recent years as a leader has been how a participative design process has resulted in a completely different level of buy-in and alignment in a team. And something like getting a client-centric culture in your business is a teamwork thing, right? So if we can mention the Springbok rugby team after this weekend, if you think of that as a team example, and you could imagine the right coach descending from the heavens and being given the task of dealing with that team, if you could imagine taking presumably competent individuals and getting them aligned around a common purpose, motivating and inspiring them around that purpose, and maybe doing it to a level a little bit more like our World Cup winning 95 rugby team. And I think that is what the potential is around client centricity and a client-centric culture in your organization. It's being able to unlock that teamwork to create something that wasn't there as individuals. And there we have it, folks. Our holistic CRM framework, right? So if the question is, what's CRM return on investment? I hope what I've been able to do there is do a couple of things. The one is, none of those things is rocket science, right? We've seen them all before. But I hope I've been able to give you a little bit of insight as to, first of all, there is return on investment in CRM. And second of all, where that comes from. And third of all, holistically, what you've got to do in order to realize it, right? So I guess all of you are involved in some way in Old Mutual Business Unit's CRM. What I'd like you to do for a second is just imagine that customer journey mapping thing that I was talking about earlier. And imagine that your customer is your Old Mutual Business Unit. And imagine that it's the end of that journey. So you've just helped your client with some CRM initiative or other, and it's the end of that journey, and they've turned to you and they've gone, thank you. You know, you have contributed so immeasurably to this dramatic transformation in our client experience that we have as an organization. We've got stats. We've been able to measure a real return on investment. We've increased our sales. We've improved our client service. And your contribution has been immeasurable. Thank you so much. And here's a huge salary increase and a promotion. Does it feel good, right? So I guess as Liquid CRM, we're on this journey ourselves. We're trying to take each of those little bubbles and each of those little pieces in those bubbles and implement them ourselves in our business. We're doing that to eat our own dog food. We're hoping to learn things out of that will help you as our clients. And apart from anything else, provide a better customer relationship management for our business. Okay. So we're going to be doing the Splash event again. We're planning to do it quarterly. I do hope that in the next one we'll have gone further down this road, be able to give you some of the insights from that and share our journey and our learnings as we go along it. Cool. So thank you very much for coming along.